everybody, Jim here. Welcome back to Mad Panic Gaming. Another video coming to you from my palatial estate here in Tokyo. What are we doing today? Today we are once again talking about shoot 'em ups on the Nintendo Switch. I've done 2 videos on the subject so far. We've talked about a lot of shooters for the Switch. Really good ones. We got vertically scrolling, we've got side scrolling, we've got bullet hell, we've got more traditional shooters, all kinds of stuff on the Switch right now. The vast majority of them have been physical releases. I think we've touched on like 1 or 2 digital games thus far. But there can be no denying there are lots and lots of shoot 'em ups on the Switch. So if you are a shoot 'em up fan, the Switch is a pretty sweet console. You can play them at home, play them on the go, whatever you want to do. And today I've got 10 more shoot 'em ups, awesome shoot 'em ups I might add, to tell you about. 8 of them right here, physical releases, and then also 2 digital only releases we're going to talk about today. Whenever possible, I like to have physical games, but some of the digital games available right now in the eShop, they were just like too tempting. They're really great games, and they weren't terribly expensive, so I caved in and picked up a couple. But we'll get around to that. We want to start off, though, right off the top of the stack. Kind of an old classic, if you will, from the Sega Naomi and the Dreamcast back in the day. Had a couple of ports since then. Now it finds its way to the Nintendo Switch. Everybody, this is Triggerheart Excelica. Okay, Triggerheart Excelica. Pretty cool game. If you've never played it before, it's a fairly straightforward shoot 'em up. You have 2 different characters to choose from, and they vary slightly in their primary attack, but essentially you have a main shot, you have a super bomb, and then you have your anchor ability. That's kind of the main attraction of this game, the main gimmick. Essentially, you can grab hold of enemies on screen, and then you can swing them around like a hammer throw, and you can clear away bullets with them, but you can also just release them and just launch them in any direction and take out enemies with them. And smaller enemies don't take very long to grab hold of, but larger enemies can take a little while, so you'll be basically building up your anchor on them while also dodging bullets. But once you've got a hold of larger enemies, they knock out more bullets than a smaller enemy would, and then when you release them, they can damage more enemies at once and cause more damage. So there's that. So essentially a pretty straightforward shooter with a pretty cool anchor ability. This particular release, I think, has 4 different gameplay modes in it. So there's the original arcade mode, which is really all I need. But there's also a story mode, which is basically the same thing. It just has cutscenes. The story in Triggerheart Excelica is kind of nonsensical. If I can remember correctly, it's like on some alien planet. But they're still humans for some reason, but they're at war with sentient robots. So these girls, they're kind of like a melding of humanity and robotics, and they are the Triggerhearts. So the story, yeah, doesn't really make much sense. It's not all that important, but there's a story mode there if you want it. There's a practice mode, which is pretty cool. It lets you select any stage you want. Get some practice in, and in case you're on your way to like a 1cc or something. And then there is an arranged mode, which really should be called the score attack mode, because it's the same thing as the arcade mode. It's just you only have 1 continue, so you're really just trying to rack up the best score you possibly can on a single continue. But that's it. There are 4 gameplay modes, pretty solid gameplay. And again, the anchor system is a pretty interesting gimmick. This has been released on like everything. Like I said, it was originally a Naomi game, and then it was on the Dreamcast, and the PS2, and the 360. It's also available on Steam right now, but if you like to play shmups on your Nintendo Switch, and if you like to get physical copies of games, this one is pretty damn good. It was ported over by Cosmo Machia, which pretty much all they do is port previously released games to more modern consoles, and they did a pretty damn good job. So if you've played it before and you liked it, or if you've never played it at all, Triggerheart Excelica on the Switch is worth picking up. It's pretty damn good. Okay, next up, Devil Engine Complete Edition. And this is a game that when I picked it up, it was kind of a total mystery to me. Apparently this game was originally released in 2019, and it was developed by Protoculture Games. And I'd never heard of this game, and I'd never heard of Protoculture either. But when I saw that Beep was going to be releasing a physical version, and I've picked up quite a few games published by Beep, and it looked pretty cool, so I decided to go for it. Kind of a retro-styled shoot 'em up, so I picked it up kind of on a whim, and I've got to say this game is awesome. It is also brutally difficult, so if you like a very challenging shmup, this will probably be one you're gonna want to pick up. Essentially, you have 3 different ships to choose from, and they actually all play very differently. There are a lot of shoot 'em ups where the different ships have kind of subtle differences to them. Here, though, like their control scheme can change entirely. There's a red ship, a blue ship, and a yellow ship. The yellow ship I found was the best for me, just because it comes equipped with a pretty standard spread shots and then a bunch of homing lasers. And then it has a power meter that as you destroy enemies, the power meter fills up to 3 different levels, and so each level lets you do some sort of different super attack. So at level 1, you can activate a shield that can cancel bullets and damage enemies that it touches. At level 2, you can unleash a huge like laser blast thing that also cancels out the bullets it comes in contact with and damages anything it touches. And then at level 3, you just get a straight up super bomb that clears all of the bullets from the screen and does extreme damage. So the yellow ship was my preferred ship. I think the red ship, you have a few different power-ups you can collect to change your primary shots. And then you have bombs as well, which also changes depending on what color the ship changes to. I found it like way more difficult to play as the red ship, and then same thing with the blue ship. The blue ship controlled kind of odd. So the yellow ship was awesome, but this game is really tough, straight up bullet hell shooter with really great retro-styled graphics. Kind of reminded me of an old Neo Geo game. Actually, playing it, some of the levels made me think of Last Resort, if anyone's ever played Last Resort, but really good, really fun game. When you play the arcade mode, there are only 2 difficulty settings. There's very easy and very hard. So there's no middleman with this game, but even if you play on very easy, it's not particularly a very easy shooter. It can still get pretty tough, and then very hard is just like sadomasochistic. And then there's like an arranged mode as well, which was just like insanity to me. It was so damn difficult. But still at the same time, a game that makes you want to keep playing because it controls really well and it is really fun. And there's lots of other stuff like bonuses to unlock, and the only way you can unlock them is by continually playing through the game, getting higher scores, clearing the arcade mode, and you can unlock various challenges in the challenge mode. You can unlock visual options. I think you can give yourself more continues. There's all kinds of stuff. So it doesn't just give you everything right away. So there's plenty to do, plenty to unlock in this game, and it's just, at its core, a very solid game with some pretty cool visuals and a really, really good soundtrack. So this was one that really surprised me. It actually comes with a bonus game called 1993 Shenandoah, and I haven't even played it yet. I've just been stuck on Devil Engine itself, so just keep that in mind if you pick this up. There's actually a bonus game that I can't even say anything about right now because I've been playing Devil Engine that much. It's a lot of fun, but again, it's a ball breaker, so just be ready. But if you haven't played it before, it's on the Switch now. It's on other online services as well, so whichever way you can, go ahead and play this one. But Devil Engine, the complete edition, it's awesome. Next up, we've got Psyvariar Delta, which was published actually by City Connection, who will take a look at another one of their games in a bit, but it was developed by Success. And if you've heard of Success before, you know that they also develop the Cotton games, and the Cotton games are usually pretty cool, so Psyvariar, it's always got a chance. Actually, there are a ton of Psyvariar games. I don't really know how many there are. I remember playing some on the PS2 and really liking those. So when I saw that there was a sequel on the Switch, I had to pick it up right away. The main gimmick of these Psyvariar games, you have 2 different ships to choose from. In pretty typical shoot-'em-up fashion, they have different primary shots, and they both come equipped with super bombs. But this is a game that I think this series introduced the idea of buzzing, which is by skimming the sides of bullets, you actually build up points and your experience meter very quickly. So this is a game you don't get power-ups to increase the strength of your shot like you would in most shoot-'em-ups. You have to actually level up by gaining experience and points. And I think there's no upper limit to how many levels you can go up. So your ship can just get exponentially more and more powerful. But the trick is that it's a bullet hell shooter. So your instinct, obviously, is to avoid all of the bullets as best as you can. Here, though, you're really, like, you're taking your life in your own hands as you get just as close to the bullets as you possibly can without taking a hit, because if you're not buzzing bullets, skimming them essentially, you're not really playing this game correctly. That's how you get points, that's how you power up your ship, and that's how you eventually take out all the bosses and stuff, is because you want to get powered up to have enough strength to destroy some of the bosses in here. That only happens by buzzing the bullets. So it's a risk-reward kind of thing. You put yourself in harm's way too much, and then you get annihilated, because I'm the type that when I play a game like this, I like spam the hell out of my super bombs. I'm just like that kind of player. I'm not too terribly good at bullet hell shooters, so I just like bomb everything as much as I can, and then I'll usually die, and then thankfully they'll give me a fresh set of bombs, and I just blow everything up again. Psyvariar Delta, though, that's not really the best strategy. Because you're clearing away all of those things that can actually help you and, you know, make your ship stronger. So, hey, that's like the duality of man, right? Right here in Psyvariar. The bullets, they help you, they hurt you, all that good stuff. But overall, this is a very fun game. It's challenging as well. Visuals are okay, I would say, but the soundtrack is really good. This is another great game by Success. And again, published by City Connection, who have kind of a reputation that fluctuates, some good, some bad. This is one of the very good things that they have published, and I think it's a fairly affordable game these days. It's like 20-30 bucks or something, brand new. So if you like the Psyvariar series in general, or even if you've never tried it before, it's a really excellent game, and I do highly recommend it. Psyvariar Delta on the Switch. Excellent game. Next up, one of the digital games I'm featuring in this video. This is Graze Counter, and this is a very fun game. Really enjoyed it. You have a couple of ships to choose from. It's a bullet hell shooter, and the basic gimmick is kind of the same as Psyvariar. You're buzzing bullets, or grazing them, as you would say in this game. But it functions quite a lot differently. So you have 2 different power meters, both located at the bottom left and the bottom right of the screen. So one of them is your Graze Counter meter, and when it's full, you can activate your Graze Counter, like Hyper Shot, which is like this super laser that cancels out all the bullets it comes into contact with and does just a ton of damage. And this meter fills up like super fast, like within like a second or so. So like there will be a ton of bullets on screen, especially if you're playing on the hard difficulty, but your Graze Counter fills up so fast that you can be almost constantly clearing bullets away from the screen. It's a very fast action game, very fun. Your second power meter is more of like a hyper gauge, so when that fills up, you can activate a hyper mode, kind of like in a DoDonPachi game. And you deal massive damage, and this is also how you get big scores as well, because as you're damaging enemies in your hyper mode, you're just getting a ton of score bonuses. But on the other hand, while you're in this mode, you don't cancel any bullets out, so it's kind of like a risk-reward thing. If you activate your Graze Counter meter, you can cancel out a lot of bullets, and you can basically save yourself from dying over and over and over again, but you're limiting how many points you can get, whereas if you enter your hyper mode, you leave yourself vulnerable to the bullets that are still on screen, but you can rack up massive scores. So depending on how you play the game, if you just want to make it to the end of the game, which is what I usually just want to do, because again, I'm not terribly good at shoot-'em-ups. Mostly I just want to see the end of the game. You can play that way, or if you're playing for score, you can play it like a totally different style. I will say though that because of the Graze Counter, this does end up being like a more approachable bullet hell shooter. I would say this would even be something like pretty good for beginners. Just because you Graze Counter, that big laser shot, it can really get you out of trouble, and it fills up so fast you can just abuse the hell out of it, just use it over and over and over again. There are multiple different difficulty settings. The easy mode is ridiculously easy, the normal mode is pretty easy too, and then the hard mode, I feel like the hard mode, it would be much more difficult if I didn't rely on the Graze Counter so much. But the hard mode itself isn't really that hard compared to some of the other games I'm taking a look at in this video, and I focused on in other videos. A lot of these like DoDonPachi bullet hell shooters by Cave and other various companies. This one, fairly easy to get into if you're a new player, I would think. Nice visuals, again another kind of like retro styled shoot 'em up. I like that, and a really good soundtrack too. So this is a fantastic game. Again, it's digital only right now. You can pick it up on Steam. You can pick it up in the Switch eShop. Either way, I recommend this one because it's a lot of fun, and I think any shoot-'em-up enthusiast owes it to themselves to give it a shot because it's really, really good. It is Graze Counter, and it's pretty damn awesome. Next up, we have The Legend of Steel Empire, published by ININ, which anything they've published in the past few years I've picked up because they always release good stuff, like all the Natsume remakes, like Pocky and Rocky Reshrined and Ninja Saviors. They published all of that stuff, so it seems like they just find really good like retro remakes and just publish those. They found their niche there. And that's the case here. The original Steel Empire was, I believe, on the Sega Genesis. I actually have never played the Genesis version, believe it or not. But when I saw this updated, remade version, or revamped, I guess you could say, rehydrated if you're speaking from SpongeBob terms. But I saw that this was getting a release on the Switch. I wanted to check it out. It looked pretty damn cool, and it is pretty damn cool. Side-scrolling shooter, you have two different ships to choose from. You have an airplane, which is faster, it's more maneuverable, but it has a more narrow primary shot, and I found it to be a little too maneuverable in areas or stages where you can actually hit the ceiling or the floor. I was losing a lot of lives that way. I switched over to the Zeppelin, which is the other playable ship, and I definitely preferred the Zeppelin. It's not quite as fast and maneuverable as the airplane is, but it has like way more firepower. It has a nice spread shot, and so I like that quite a lot. You get some super bombs as well, but you can also get some little options to follow your ship around and increase your firepower. And something else cool in this game, kind of like Psyvariar, the more enemies you destroy, the more point bonuses you collect. You level your ship up over time and become more powerful, and I don't even know what the upper limit is. I'm assuming like you can get to maybe level 99 or 100, but you can greatly increase the power of your ship over time. So you start out pretty weak sauce, but by the end of the game, you're just like a killing machine. This game has a really cool steampunk motif. In fact, on the case it says, "Pure shoot-'em-up action in a steampunk world." And that's very accurate, so you get to fight all these like giant airships and other like super giant zeppelins, and like I think there's you go underground in these caverns and you fight some giant military train and stuff. So there's a lot of really cool boss battles in here, a lot of cool enemies. Just a great motif for a shoot 'em up anyway, kind of like how Pro Gear had a cool kind of like steampunk motif to it. I like that a lot. So it's a good looking game, has a pretty cool soundtrack too, has a handful of gameplay modes and difficulty settings, so there's a lot to enjoy here. And overall it just controls really well, plays really well, it's a lot of fun. I was pleasantly surprised by this game. Again, I never played the original, so I can't comment on how good it was. but I can say that The Legend of Steel Empire on the Switch is fantastic. I probably should have done my research before recording this. I don't know if this was what other platforms this was released on. I have to imagine you could probably also pick it up maybe on the PS4 or Steam. Usually these games end up being multi-platform. But this is an excellent game. If you've played the original on the Genesis, I'd recommend picking this one up as well, if you enjoy that game at least. Because I have to imagine this is just like a better updated version of that game. Again, kind of ignorant, didn't play that game yet, but it can't be better than this one because this game is awesome. It's pure steampunk awesome sauce. So when I reach for the sauce, you know I'm serious. But yeah, The Legend of Steel Empire. Blow up a ton of stuff in a steampunk world and have a damn good time doing it. I really like this game, highly recommend it. It's awesome. Next up, another game published by City Connection. Although I think this one, the development was handled by a developer called Tatsujin. Which is a pretty apt name because this is Batsugun Saturn Tribute Boosted. And of course Batsugun originally developed by Toaplan, who also developed Tatsujin, aka Truxton, and a whole bunch of other really great shoot-em-ups. So Batsugun, if you've never played it, I think this was Toaplan's final shoot-em-up before they folded, and I think some of the people that worked at Toaplan went on to form Cave. So that's cool. One great company dies, another great company is born. But Batsugun, one of the early games in kind of like the Maniac Danmaku shooter subgenre. A lot of fun. You got a few different ships to choose from. They all have different shot types. And then it's just balls to the wall, non-stop shooting action. As you destroy enemies and earn points, you're also building up an experience meter, and you can level up 3 times. And then for each level, you can collect power-ups as well, just to further increase your strength. So by the end of this game, you are one absolute badass. It's just like lasers and missiles going all over the screen. And of course, super bombs. You can't have a good shoot-em-up without some good super bombs. For people like me, who absolutely need and love their super bombs in a Danmaku shooter. But like the title implies, this is the Saturn tribute. The Saturn version of Batsugun is awesome, and it included an original arcade mode and then also an updated Saturn mode. So this also includes both of those iterations of Batsugun. They're both awesome. If you're playing the boosted mode, I believe after you finish the game, it just goes on to like a second loop that's much more difficult. So that's really cool. So it's like this just perpetual shoot 'em up, which is great. Whereas the arcade mode, when you finish it, it's finished. It's over with. But both are really cool versions of the game. The boosted mode, or the Saturn mode, has some updated visuals and an updated soundtrack, which is cool. But something else that's especially cool in here is there's actually a third soundtrack. Yes! A third soundtrack. So there's the original arcade soundtrack. There's the soundtrack that was featured on the Saturn version. And then there's a whole new arranged soundtrack that was put together by just a bunch of different artists that specialize in, I guess, remixing video game music. And it sounds really, really good. So this is a pretty solid game. I know that City Connection, after they botched the release of, I think it was Cotton Boomerang and Guardian Force, they really botched the port of that game. They ported both of those games from the Saturn, and the input lag on it was something like 11 or 12 frames. Like, it was especially bad. This one, though, as I was playing it, I did not notice any significant input lag. Maybe I'm not terribly sensitive to it. If I understand correctly, it was clocked at like 5 frames, or 5 or 6. Not 100% sure on that. But whatever it was pretty minimal because I didn't really notice. I still felt like it was a pretty smooth playing experience, and I had a lot of fun with it. I have heard that M2 is potentially working on their own version of it, like an M2 Shot Triggers version. So you might want to hold out for that one, just because M2 always does like a superior job on ports like this. I don't know how true that is though, but I can say if you like Batsugun, or if you've never played Batsugun at all, you should almost definitely pick this up. It's a real treat because this is an awesome game. You get 2 versions of it. They're ported pretty good, and you even get some cool bonus materials and an additional remix soundtrack. It's pretty damn good. So Batsugun Saturn Tribute Boosted. I recommend picking it up because, just as I like to say so very often, it is indeed awesome. Next up, the second of the digital games I'm recommending, and the first of a bunch of cave shooters that I'm going to be talking about today that have all been ported to the Switch. But this is Mushihimesama. The original Mushihimesama, mind you, not Mushihimesama Futari, which, as far as I know, has not been ported to the eShop yet, but it most likely is on Steam. You might want to double check that. I don't know for sure. But the original Mushihimesama, this was ported over by Livewire, who, aside from M2, Livewire has been great for porting over these cave shooters. And this is a port of the Xbox 360 version of Mushihimesama. So essentially like a straight port, just like all their ports are, as you're going to see coming up. But Mushihimesama, just another great vertically scrolling cave shooter with a great motif. It's all giant bugs and like forests and all. It's got a natural kind of like vibe motif to it. So you're the bug princess. You're Mushihimesama flying around on your golden beetle, and you're just destroying the hell out of like evil bugs and lizards and even like dinosaurs and stuff. Pretty crazy. But a really fun game. Plays similar to the vein of something like a DoDonPachi, but it has some of its own little quirks and fun things. But just like with all these like 360 ports, there are a bunch of different gameplay modes to choose from. So there's like an original arcade mode, there's novice mode, I believe, there's a black label mode that makes all kinds of changes. So there's like a lot of different gameplay modes and options to play around with, on top of what is already just at its core a really fun, great shooter, and very challenging as well. You can boost up the difficulty in this. I've seen some people play the Mushihimesama games on like the Maniac mode or whatever it's called, and it's like inconceivable to me. I don't think my eyes are built for that exactly, but even just playing it on like a standard difficulty, I have a hard enough time with it, but I also have a lot of fun with it. So great graphics, a really excellent soundtrack, ton of gameplay modes to choose from. Again, this one is only digital for now, but I've seen by the end of the year, they are going to be releasing a physical version. Livewire is. They've released a bunch of other ones already. They ported them all to the eShop like a long time ago, and they have just been steadily going down the line, releasing physical versions of them. So you can pick this up digitally now, or if you want to wait until later this year, you can get yourself a physical copy. But whatever the case may be, Mushihimesama, it's one of Cave's like just awesome classic shooters. Pretty much any shoot 'em up fan owes it to themselves to play. It's really, really good. Next up, another cave shooter, and another one that was ported over by Livewire. It is Espgaluda 2. And again, this is one that was available on the eShop already. But they released a physical version of it, so I snapped it up immediately because I had this on the Xbox 360 and really enjoyed it. I like the first game too, but I don't think anyone is going to argue that the second game isn't an improvement over it. It's really good. I would say the gameplay most resembles another cave shooter, which is Espgaluda. So here, instead of just having straight super bombs, you have more of a psi meter, and when you activate it, it creates a barrier around you that cancels out all bullets, and the longer you hold down the button, the more powerful it becomes, and then when you release it, you fire off this huge laser blast that just annihilates everything in its path. But once you run out of your psi energy, you're pretty screwed. You don't have that barrier to fall back on anymore. You can refill it by picking up power-ups, but they're kind of few and far between. so you really do want to save that as like a last-ditch effort. You have 3 different playable characters to choose from. They all have different shot types, and then you can go into a hyper mode as well by collecting crystals. You build up like a hyper counter, and then when you go into that hyper mode, you do tons of damage, and it's different for each character. So there really is the incentive to try all the different characters out and pick whichever one your favorite is. Again, with this being a port of the Xbox 360 version, there are a ton of gameplay modes to choose from. Some of them change the gameplay up quite a lot. There's Black Label mode, which lets you pick an additional playable character, and it changes up the gameplay. You can like graze bullets in it as well, and the additional playable character has like some kind of funky gameplay mechanics to them, so that's fun. There is an arrange mode as well, where when you're firing your rapid shot, you can cancel out different colored bullets, like I think the red bullets, and then when you're firing your laser shot, you can cancel out blue bullets. So you like switch back and forth between your rapid and your laser to like keep canceling bullets. It's a lot of fun. You just, you know, bounce back and forth between the two depending on what bullets are coming at you. But all of the gameplay modes, they're fun. There's a novice mode to get you acclimated. Again, if you're not too terribly good at these games, it's always nice that there's a novice mode. And there are various difficulty settings and other things like that to play around with. But again, just like with Mushihimesama, just in general, a really fun, especially challenging bullet hell shooter by Cave. It was ported very well by Livewire, has a ton of different gameplay modes to choose from, has very nice graphics, an excellent soundtrack, in fact multiple excellent soundtracks, which is really cool. Always appreciate that. If you want to blow up a whole bunch of stuff, it is nice to have some good music to listen to while you do it. So there's not much else to say about this one. Espgaluda 2. It's incredibly awesome, and if you're a Danmaku shooter fan and you haven't picked this one up yet, what are you waiting for? It kicks ass. Pick it up right now. I'm telling you that right now. That's an order. Pick it up. Espgaluda 2. It's awesome. Next up, would you believe it? Another cave shooter. And another cave shooter ported by Livewire. This is DoDonPachi Daifukatsu, aka DoDonPachi Resurrection. And this game is just absolutely awesome. I did a full review of this game already, and I just like sang its praises. So I guess I'll just do it again, maybe like a shorter version of that. Pretty much everything I just said about Espgaluda 2 and Mushihimesama, you can apply it here. So it's a straight port of the Xbox 360 version, which means it's an excellent playing port. And there are a ton of different gameplay modes. You get the original mode, you get version 1.51, I think it's called. You get arrange mode, you get black label mode, you get like a black label arrange mode, which allows you to play as the ship from Ketsui. So they take the ship from Ketsui and like some of the gameplay mechanics of Ketsui, and then they move that over and put it into DoDonPachi. So that's incredibly awesome. This game, I think among DoDonPachi fans at least, it's a little divisive because it represents kind of like a shift from like old school DoDonPachi games to kind of like the more new school ones. There's this, and then there's Daioujou, which is just like insane in its own right. They lean heavily into the waifus and stuff. But regardless of that, still incredibly fun, challenging, just excellent bullet hell shooters. I had so much fun with this. So it's got all those gameplay modes to choose from. It's got really great visuals. It's got multiple excellent soundtracks. And it's been ported just amazingly. Again, this is one that Livewire made available digitally like years ago, and finally got around to putting out a physical version. And I'm so glad they did. I picked this one up immediately, like on release day, and was just immediately having fun with it. Again, this is one that I had it on the Xbox 360. I loved it. I sold my Xbox 360 collection, like all of them. All those bullet hell shooters I had on it, they're all gone. And now I'm very thankful that pretty much all of them are being ported to the Switch, and they're just a great job on them. And I haven't even mentioned it yet in this video, but it's kind of cool that they're just on the Switch if you want to play some bullet hell shooters on the go. It's a little bit tricky. I've tried it. I've taken my Switch with me when I go on like some long train rides. Like if I'm leaving the city to go to like some adjacent prefecture, it takes me like an hour, hour and a half to get where I'm going. So I've taken my Switch with me a few times, and I've tried playing some bullet hell shooters while on the train. It's a little tricky because the screen is, obviously, a lot smaller than your television. So keeping track of all the bullets coming in at you is a little bit, you gotta squint a little bit, or at least I do. But still pretty fun. It's just like a nice bonus of playing shooters on the Switch. If you really want to play them on the go, you have that option. But anyway, that's kind of an aside. I'm rambling now. DoDonPachi Daifukatsu, aka Resurrection. Again, everything I said about those other cave shooters ported by Livewire applied here. It's an amazing port, lots of gameplay modes, on top of what was already just like a banger of a game anyway. If you like a good Danmaku shooter, they don't get much better than this. I would recommend picking it up ASAP. Last but certainly not least, it is another modern port of a cave shooting classic. This is DoDonPachi Daioujou Reincarnation. And unlike the previous games I just talked about, this was not ported by Livewire. This is actually part of the M2 Shot Triggers collection. And if you know anything about the games in this series, you know that the ports are just amazing. Like, they play like perfectly. It's honestly kind of shocking, like how well they play, even for people who kind of obsess over like input lag and things like that, and kind of rip on the Switch for, the shooters. They're so super laggy or whatever. Even they will admit to you that this game, the games in the M2 Shot Triggers collection, they're just like on point, man. These ports are so excellent. So yeah, DDP DOJ. This is kind of like the last of the old school DoDonPachi games. Kind of like where the series split. Went out with a bang, I guess you could say, because this is, in most people's opinion, as good as DoDonPachi ever was. And probably ever will be. Just a super smooth playing, challenging, badass game. You got 3 different selectable ships. You got super bombs. You got hyper modes. You got a bunch of different gameplay modes. You have 3 different arrange modes that change up the gameplay considerably. My favorite one puts you in the red ship, and then you're just in your hyper mode the entire game. So you don't have any super bombs or anything, but you're never not in your hyper mode. And so it's just a lot of fun, because anything that gets on that screen is just immediately annihilated, which is awesome. But there are a few different arrange modes. There's an original arcade mode. There's arcade challenge modes. There's other various challenge modes as well. There's like bonus, features and abilities. You can do like rewinding the game. You can play stages in like little individual segments. You can play all the different bosses individually if you want to. If you're trying to like get better at this particular stage or this particular boss, you're trying to get like a 1cc eventually, you're trying to build up your score as high as it'll go. It has lots of different gameplay options. I think in total there's like a dozen different gameplay modes here, so that's just awesome. There's different options for various aspects of the gameplay, of the difficulty, of the controls, obviously, of the visuals, of the soundtrack. There's just so much contained in this game. And again, it's all in service to what at its core is like a really, really good game. Like, they could have just done like a straight port where it's just the arcade mode and then like an arranged mode, and I still would have been happy, because DDP DOJ is just like, it's really, really good. I'm someone who, like, I play quite a lot of shoot 'em ups, obviously, doing videos like this. And I have for a long time, but I don't have like the thing in my brain that those people who are really good at shoot 'em ups have. I think I don't have that. So like, I love playing shooters. I love the simplicity of them, and I just have so much fun with them. It's one of the few like genres of games these days that when a new title comes out, I can pick it up and still really enjoy it. Maybe it's just like my old age creeping in, but even though I'm not terribly good at them, I have a lot of fun with them anyway, if they're well made. And this game is like just the epitome of that. It's so well made. It's so much fun. There's so much content here. And again, beautiful graphics, awesome soundtrack, various versions of the soundtrack to listen to. M2 did with this what they do with pretty much all the games they do in the Shot Triggers collection, and they just made it like as good as it could possibly be, and it's excellent. This is one of, I mean, I know I call this video like the best Switch shmups, but at this point I think I've talked about like more than 30 of them, and they're like, there's just a ton of really good shooters on the Switch. This, if I was going to put together like a top 5 anyway, this would definitely be in there. It would be a battle for top 1 because I like other stuff like Rolling Gunner, some other various shooters I've talked about in the past. But this is definitely in the top 5 at least. This game, this port, it's amazing. If you're a Danmaku shooter, you probably already have this. Or if you're a Danmaku shooter fan, you probably already have this. But if you don't have it yet, I highly recommend playing it. If you pick it up on this or pick it up on the PS5, I think you can. If you've never played DoDonPachi Daioujou before, this is a perfect way to play it. Again, whether it's on the Switch or the PS5 or PS4, whatever the case may be, play this game. If you're a shooter fan at all, play this game. It's a ton of fun, and it's just a great port. Again, DoDonPachi Daioujou Reincarnation. This game kicks major ass, and that's some serious ass right there. So it's kicking it hard too. It's not just lightly kicking it. No, it's not a little tap. It is like a total toe up the hole, if you know what I'm saying. So pick this up, play it, enjoy it, and then the world will be a better place. Thank you, DoDonPachi. So there you go, everybody. That's 10 more awesome shoot-em-ups for the Nintendo Switch. Lots to enjoy. If you're a shooter fan, it's a great console. Again, because you can play all the shooters you want on your TV. But if you're like me, if you take the train a lot, maybe you commute to work, or if you just like to run out to random places out in the middle of nowhere to go on game hunts, and it takes you about an hour and a half to get there one way. Having a Switch with you on the train, loaded up with some bullet hell shooters, that can be, pretty fun. That can make the train ride just go that much faster. Anyway, let me know down in the comments, have you played any more recent shoot-em-ups on the Switch or otherwise on the PS4, the PS5, whatever the case may be, or some old shooters. Recently, I've been playing a lot of stuff on like MAME and Final Burn Neo, just playing a lot of really great arcade shoot-em-ups. I've got some videos coming on that as well in the future. But yeah, let me know down in the comments what you think of any of these games. Have you played them? And do you agree with me? Are they totally awesome, or am I just an idiot? And that'll do it. Thanks, everybody, for watching this video on Mad Panic Gaming. Truly appreciate it. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.